The old paradigm, the old weight loss paradigm is totally false. It goes something like this, right? So we're dealing with this obesity epidemic. That's that umbrella health issue. And then underneath are all the connected issues, right? So dementia, Alzheimer's, diabetes, osteopenia, osteoporosis, cancers. But obesity is kind of the big umbrella issue. And the old paradigm said, okay, in order to lose weight, you need to take in less calories than you burn, or put it differently, take in more or burn more calories than you take in. And so the formula looked like restrict calories. And then the exercise portion of the formula was like this. They looked at exercise and they valued all exercise for one thing. How many calories does it burn while you do it? So they look at all forms of exercise and they said, okay, we need to burn more calories. Therefore, the most valuable form of exercise that'll combat obesity, improve our health, is the one that burns the most calories. And the problem with that approach is that it ignores the real and true value of exercise, which is, how does this exercise, this form of exercise, get my body to adapt? And then what does that mean? What do those adaptations mean? So we've ignored that and just looked at the calorie burn. And when you look at just the calorie burn, it does become quite clear, right? Cardio, sure. An hour of running is going to burn more calories than an hour of any other form of exercise, including strength training. The problem is the adaptations that we end up inducing through that form of exercise are not beneficial for the average person who's going to work out 2 or 3 days a week, who wants to lose weight and improve their health. Well, the adaptations look like this, right? So here's what happens when you exercise, and I'm sure I'm speaking to a lot of people probably already know this, but when you exercise, you stress the body, and your body aims at getting better at that particular activity. So if I go try running and I've never run before, one block is going to be very difficult. The next day, I might be able to do a block and a half, and so on, as my body adapts. What's happening to my body is it's adapting for this form of exercise. Well, that form of exercise burns a lot of calories while I'm doing it, doesn't require much strength at all. In fact, it requires very little strength. Cardiovascular activity requires minimal strength, as evidenced by extreme endurance athletes. They have very little muscle on their bodies. So what the body does is it improves its endurance and it pares down muscle. Why does it pare down muscle? Because muscle is expensive. It's an expensive tissue. So my body's trying to learn how to do this activity, but burn less calories while I'm doing it, and burn less calories all the time. I'm trying to become more efficient. So think of it this way. It would be like having an artificially intelligent car that adapted to your driving habits. And then imagine if you drove every single day, 200 miles at 30 miles an hour. It would turn itself into a very small engine or an electric engine. It wouldn't have much power, and it would conserve energy. This is exactly what that old paradigm is causing. Restrict calories, do lots of cardio, slow your metabolism down. In fact, studies show consistently that when people diet plus cardio, they actually lose half the weight that they lose is muscle. So if you lose 10 pounds, 5 pounds is muscle, 5 pounds of body fat. Now, why is this a bad thing? Slows down your metabolism. Also, okay, you're not any leaner. You're just smaller. Mm-hmm. You've lost 5 pounds of muscle and 5 pounds of body fat, which means you're a smaller, same flabbiness, slower metabolism version of yourself. So over time, what is this? And we've all experienced this, either ourselves or definitely clients we've trained or family members. Mm-hmm. You lose weight initially, right? Half of it muscle, half of it body fat. Then you plateau. Why do you plateau? My metabolism slowed down. It adapted. How do I get it to move anymore? Oh, better do more cardio, better cut my calories more. Eventually, at the end of that, you're left with, I have to eat 1,500 calories a day, and I have to run 5 days a week just to maintain what I've lost, which for the average person is completely unsustainable. And it's done a tremendous disservice to people because nobody's considering the form of exercise that does the opposite to the metabolism, which is strength training and resistance training. When you do resistance training, although you're not burning tons of calories while you're doing it, the main adaptation is get stronger, build muscle, and that speeds up the metabolism. And this is what it looks like when you do resistance training as part of your fat loss or weight loss routine. The weight loss starts off slow. You don't lose as much weight initially. Although the weight that you do lose is body fat, not muscle, and sometimes you build muscle in the process. But over time, you get this snowball, which I would see with clients all the time. I train people, and they would, luckily I was very convincing, so they would do what I told them, and we would see the snowball effect as the metabolism starts to kick up. Oftentimes at the end of weight loss with resistance training or proper resistance training, you end up with a faster metabolism than you went into. So I might have been overweight before, eating 2,200 calories, but now I'm lean, eating 2,400 calories. Far more sustainable. And there's way more, by the way, that goes into how resistance training affects the body and why it's the superior form of exercise for most people.
In a scenario where the person's running and burning calories, it's great. They're putting in a good effort. They're burning, let's just say, 500 calories, but they're trading out their time for those calories, basically. It's manual. It takes X amount of time to burn 500 calories. What you're saying is, hey, we might be better off maybe going at it from a different point of view. We might be better off just building muscle, because muscle will burn more calories for us even when we're at rest. Yes, and by the way, and I want to make this very clear, because when you say building muscle to people like us, we get excited. You say building muscle to the average person. Now, usually men are cool with it. Sometimes guys are even funny about it, like, oh, I don't want to get big. You say build muscle to women and they freak out because they think they're getting big. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you something right now. If I could magically add 10 pounds of muscle to every single woman watching or listening to this podcast right now, they wouldn't look any bigger. They'd just be a lot tighter. Mm-hmm. They would just feel more firm. It's funny. When I used to manage gyms, for a long time, I grand opened health clubs and managed gyms. And one of my jobs as manager was to get people in, to sign them up, make sure that they were consistent, get good results, the whole deal, right? So when I would bring in a potential member, I'd do a tour. And I'd walk through the gym, and if it was a woman, the average woman, I'd walk through and I'd say, oh, here's our cardio. And she'd, oh my God, I love this part. Here's our aerobics. Oh, I can't wait to take the classes. Here's our machines and free weights. Oh, I don't care about that. I'm not trying to get big. Then I would talk about the benefits and why she wants to do this, especially if she's trying to lose weight. And if I still couldn't convince them, we'd go back to my office, and I would always have a staff of trainers. And I'm remembering one trainer in particular. It was this young lady. She was about 5'2" and very sculpted. Like, she had the body that most women would want. So we'd sit down in my office and I'd say, okay, I tell you what, I'm going to call in one of my female trainers. If you can tell me, if you can guess her weight within 10 pounds, I'll give you a free membership for 3 months. And of course, she would take that challenge. Absolutely. So I'd say, okay, attention staff, so-and-so, Sal's office. In would walk in my 5'2" female personal trainer. And I'd say, how much do you think she weighs? And they would say something like, oh, she's 105 pounds, 110 pounds. I'd say, okay. And I had a scale in my office. So I'd be like, stand on the scale, and she'd get on it, like 135 pounds or 140 pounds. And it would blow her mind, because people equate weight to lots of mass, but when you're talking about muscle, it's very, very dense. And then I would ask this female trainer, now tell, so-and-so what you ate for breakfast. She'd be like, oh, I had 4 egg omelet, 3 strips of bacon, 2 pieces of toast. What'd you have for lunch? Oh, I had a whole burrito from, Chipotle. And I'd say, she can eat all this because her body is burning these calories on its own. Mm-hmm. How would you like to have a metabolism that does that for you, so that you don't have to worry about moving all the time? And by the way, we were just talking about how ineffective that is because it's such a manual way of burning calories. There was a study that blew my mind. It came out, I want to say about 5 years ago, maybe a little more. Scientists went and studied modern hunter-gatherers. So these are people that live the way we lived 10,000 years ago. Very active. Like, they don't have computers and phones and TVs. They don't sit down. They're either gathering or they're hunting. And the way that they hunt is the way that we probably hunted thousands of years ago, where you throw a spear at an animal, you wound it, and then you run after it until it gets exhausted. So you're talking about incredible amounts of activity. So they went down and they studied these people's metabolism through some pretty sophisticated testing to see how many calories these people burn. What they found at the end of the study was remarkable. They burned roughly the same amount of calories as the average Western couch potato. Right around the same amount of calories. Now, at first you think to yourself, like, how's that possible? But then think about evolution. It wouldn't make sense for you to burn 8,000 calories as a hunter-gatherer. You're not going to find 8,000 calories out in the wild. You'll die. Their bodies adapted to all that activity by slowing down their metabolism. And this is essentially what people are doing by following this old paradigm of exercise. It's no wonder that, 85 or 90% of people fail with weight loss. Of course, you're going to fail with weight loss. You're setting yourself up for total failure.
So then is resistance training with cardio still a good thing, or is that something that you just want to avoid if you are, I guess if you have too much to lose?
No, that's a good question, because sometimes we'll get the moniker that we're anti-cardio. We're not. I want to be very clear. All forms of exercise have value when applied appropriately. That's an important thing to...
Also, wouldn't it be fairly obvious to say that if you were to build more muscle and you did some cardio, I'm not talking about excessive amounts, that you would be able to burn a great deal of calories more because now you have more muscle mass on you. So that hour jog that someone did, or mile jog that someone did, when having 160 pounds of muscle on their body, is probably quite different than someone having 180 pounds on their body.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, if I were to construct a perfect routine for the average person, the base would be strength training. Then you would have a cardiovascular component, a flexibility and a mobility component. But here's the deal. I trained regular everyday people for over 2 decades, and we are totally lying to ourselves if we think we're going to get the average person to work out more than 2 or 3 days a week. In fact, 2 or 3 days a week that's us doing a damn good job. That's us doing a really, really good job. And so telling people to do 4 different forms of exercise, it's not going to happen. You know what they're going to do? If we're lucky and we do a good job and we teach them how to develop the skill of discipline and create these behaviors, what they're going to do is they're going to choose one form of exercise and they'll do it 2 or 3 days a week. In that context, you want to pick the one that gives you the most bang for your buck, the one that's going to protect you the most against chronic illness, and the one that's going to produce the leanest physique with the least amount of effort and time. Hands down, that's resistance training. There's nothing that comes close. So that's why I talk so much about strength training. Cardio's got its benefits though. But, again, average person, when they think I want to lose weight, what do? They don't go grab a pair of dumbbells or do body weight strength training or use bands. What they do is they decide they're going to go run or go ride a bike, because that's what we've been telling. And I say we, as generally as the mainstream fitness industry, that's what we've been telling people that is the most effective way to lose body fat and get healthy, it's totally false. By the way, on the health front, the studies are finally now showing just how healthy, I'm not just talking about how good you look, but also health, just how healthy strength training and resistance training is in comparison to cardiovascular exercise and other forms of exercise. It blows them away. Absolutely blows them away.